There's a photograph that over 1 billion people have seen, and almost none of them can tell you where it was taken. You know the one. Rolling green hill, deep blue sky, a few white clouds drifting so perfectly you'd think someone placed them there. It was the default desktop wallpaper on Windows XP. It shipped on hundreds of millions of computers between 2001 and 2014. Statistically, it may be the single most viewed photograph in human history. And here's the thing that should bother you. Nobody actually lived there. That hill doesn't look like that anymore. The field was a vineyard in Sonoma, California, and the photographer caught it on one specific morning in January 1996 after a rainstorm had saturated the grass and cleared the sky. That exact image, that exact version of that place has never existed again. So why did it feel like home? That question is not as simple as nostalgia. There's something stranger at work here. Something that touches the way your brain processes calm, the way technology was designed to make you feel, and underneath all of it, a quiet truth about why modern screens almost never look like that anymore. Not because we moved on, because something was quietly taken. Think about the last time you sat down at a computer and felt nothing. No anxiety, no obligation, no sense that you were already behind on something. For a lot of people, the answer involves some version of that desktop. Early Windows, a simple taskbar, a start button. The machine was slow, the internet was limited, and somehow the experience felt more spacious than anything we have now. That's not a coincidence, that's architecture. Here's what most people assume is happening when they feel this. They think it's just nostalgia, a sentimental preference for the past dressed up as insight. They think the old software felt peaceful because they were younger, because the stakes were lower, because they didn't know what they didn't know. And there's truth in that. Childhood does soften memory. Familiarity does breed comfort. But that explanation is incomplete, and the incompleteness matters. Because the same feeling, that specific digital quiet, gets reported by people who didn't grow up with Windows XP, by people who encounter it through an emulator or a screenshot and still feel something slow down in their chest. Nostalgia doesn't explain that. Something else does. Your brain is a prediction machine. Every moment you're awake, it is generating a model of what is about to happen, building expectation ahead of experience so that you can respond to the world before the world actually arrives. This is efficient. It is also exhausting, and it means that every interface you interact with is training your nervous system. Every notification sound teaches your brain to anticipate interruption. Every scroll feed teaches it to expect novelty every 2 seconds. Every red badge on an app icon teaches it that the default state of a screen is urgency. You don't consciously register this training. You just find yourself sitting at a computer and feeling, for no clear reason, slightly on edge. Windows XP did not work this way. Not because the designers were more enlightened, but because the product had a different goal. The early desktop was not a platform for engagement. It was a workspace. It was designed to get out of your way. The wallpaper was not there to stimulate you. It was there to rest your eyes between tasks. The interface sounds, the startup chime, the shutdown tone were not designed to trigger dopamine. They were designed to mark transitions. There is a meaningful difference between an interface built to hold your attention and an interface built to serve your intention. We have mostly forgotten what the second type felt like to use. Here's where the design becomes structural. The modern attention economy does not merely distract you, it recalibrates your baseline. Spend enough time in high-stimulation interfaces, and at this point, most of us have spent years, and the brain adjusts its threshold for what counts as normal stimulation. Calm starts to register as emptiness. Quiet starts to feel like something missing. You open a browser, and the silence before the page loads produces a faint anxiety you can't name. This is not weakness, this is adaptation. Your nervous system is doing exactly what it was designed to do. It's just that the environment it adapted to was itself designed to extract attention rather than support cognition. The Bliss wallpaper worked on you because it asked nothing. No face to read, no text to process, no implied action, just light, color, and depth, the same low-level inputs that human vision evolved to find restful. The sky and the hill bypassed the social cognition layer entirely. Your threat detection system had nothing to flag. Your reward system had nothing to chase. For a moment, your brain was simply there, doing the quiet background maintenance it almost never gets time for anymore. We didn't lose attention, we trained it away. That line needs to sit for a moment, because the implication is that this was not an accident. The shift from restful interfaces to maximally engaging ones was a deliberate redesign driven by a business model. Attention became inventory. Your time on screen became a product. And once that happened, calm, genuine, undemanding, looking at a green hill calm became a design flaw, something to be optimized out, an opportunity for engagement that was being left on the table. Here is the realization that tends to land hard. The peace you associate with early computing was not incidental. It was not a side effect of primitive technology. It was a property of systems that were not yet trying to own you. The moment platforms learned that every second of idle screen time was revenue they weren't capturing, the idle screen began to disappear. The wallpaper got replaced by a feed. The feed got replaced by autoplay. The clean desktop became a dock of notification-hungry apps. Each step was framed as improvement, more features, more connection, more of everything you wanted. But what was being quietly removed in every iteration, every redesign, every dark pattern buried in the onboarding was the one thing the Bliss wallpaper gave you for free: permission to not be stimulated. Peace didn't disappear. It was designed out of existence. What you're mourning when you see that wallpaper is not the past. You're mourning a design philosophy that placed the user's mental state above the platform's engagement metrics. You're mourning an internet that had not yet learned to be hungry. And what makes the grief complicated is that you were never told it was being taken. It happened through progressive modification, each update reasonable, each change minor, until the cumulative effect was an entirely different relationship between you and your screen. You adapted, you accepted the new baseline, and the old one lives now in screenshots and emulators and the faint, inexplicable feeling you get when you stumble across that hill. Here is the final layer. The photograph in Bliss was taken in a moment that could not last. The storm had just passed. The light was at a specific angle. The grass was saturated with water that would dry within hours. The photographer, Charles O'Rare, had pulled over on his way somewhere else. He took the shot, and then the moment ended. The hill returned to being a normal hill. The sky returned to being a normal sky. The image was not of a place. It was of an instant, captured, frozen, and then replicated across hundreds of millions of screens as though it were a place you could live. You never actually lived there, but for a few seconds at startup every day, your brain thought you did. It thought you were somewhere with no unread messages, somewhere with no loading screens, somewhere that did not need anything from you. And then the desktop appeared, and the tasks were waiting, and you clicked into it. But for that one moment, the sky was very blue, the hill was very green, and the world was not yet asking. It still isn't, actually. The moment is still in the photograph. The hill is still there. You just have to close enough windows to see it.